Wars are not fought for the reasons you're told. Every war in modern history has had a public justification and a private agenda. The public justification is for recruitment posters, news coverage, and history textbooks. The private agenda is discussed in boardrooms, banking offices, and closed-door meetings where the people who profit from conflict calculate their returns. The US-Iran confrontation unfolding right now is no different. You've heard the official reasons: nuclear threats, regional stability, protecting allies, fighting terrorism, defending democracy. These narratives dominate every news broadcast, every press conference, every think tank analysis. But narratives don't fund aircraft carriers. Narratives don't pay for missiles. Narratives don't move markets. Money does. Over the next 16 minutes, I'm going to show you 12 financial agendas driving this conflict. Not theories, not speculation. Exposed financial interests with exposed beneficiaries making exposed profits from the crisis you're watching on your screen. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this war is happening, who's getting rich from it, and why peace is the one outcome that powerful interests cannot afford. Follow the money. It never lies. Subscribe now. This is information that changes how you see every war for the rest of your life. Agenda number 1. Defense contractors have locked in record profits that depend on sustained Middle East military operations. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Dynamics. The Big Five defense contractors generated over $200 billion in revenue last year. Their stock prices track military tensions with mathematical precision. When headlines announce escalation, share prices rise. When diplomacy advances, share prices fall. These companies spend hundreds of millions annually on lobbying. They fund think tanks that produce analysis recommending military solutions. They employ former generals and admirals who appear on news networks as independent experts while receiving defense contractor consulting fees. The revolving door between the Pentagon and defense industry boardrooms is so well established it has a name: the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower warned about it in 1961. 65 years later, it's larger, wealthier, and more politically influential than ever. Peace with Iran would reduce demand for the products these companies sell. Sustained tension guarantees sustained revenue. The financial math is simple. Agenda number 2. Oil price volatility generates billions in trading profits for financial institutions with advanced information access. When Iranian missiles launch, oil futures spike. When diplomatic channels open, oil futures drop. These price movements are predictable to anyone with access to classified intelligence briefings, military planning sessions, or high-level diplomatic communications. Major financial institutions employ former intelligence officials. They maintain relationships with current government insiders. They receive information hours or days before the public. A single percentage point movement in oil prices represents billions of dollars in the futures market. Institutions positioned correctly before major announcements capture these billions. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and other major trading operations have energy desks staffed by analysts whose job is predicting exactly these movements. War doesn't disrupt their profits. War is their profit. The more volatile the situation, the more money changes hands, and the more sophisticated players extract from less informed participants. Agenda number 3. The petrodollar system requires military enforcement to prevent alternatives from emerging. Since the 1970s, global oil has been priced and traded primarily in US dollars. This arrangement forces every nation that imports oil to maintain dollar reserves, creating permanent demand for American currency regardless of American economic fundamentals. The petrodollar allows the United States to run deficits that would collapse any other economy. It allows the Federal Reserve to print money without immediate inflationary consequences. It is the foundation of American financial hegemony. Iran has attempted to sell oil in euros, yuan, and other currencies. Iraq attempted the same before the 2003 invasion. Libya proposed a gold-backed African currency before NATO intervention. Every nation that has seriously threatened petrodollar dominance has faced regime change, invasion, or sustained military pressure. Coincidence is one explanation. Pattern is another. The US-Iran conflict isn't about nuclear weapons. It's about preserving a monetary system that transfers wealth from the entire world to American financial institutions. Agenda number 4. Weapons sales to Gulf states depend on maintaining Iran as a permanent threat that justifies purchases. Saudi Arabia is the world's largest arms importer. The UAE is among the top 5. Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain all maintain massive weapons purchasing programs. The justification for these purchases is always the same: Iranian threat. American weapons manufacturers have sold hundreds of billions in fighter jets, missile systems, tanks, and naval vessels to Gulf monarchies over the past 2 decades. These sales require State Department approval and are presented as defensive necessities rather than commercial transactions. If Iran were no longer a threat, Gulf states would have difficulty justifying these expenditures to their populations. Defense budgets would face scrutiny. Contracts would shrink. The permanent Iranian threat is the permanent sales pitch. Peace would be bad for business. Agenda number 5. Private military contractors have built business models around permanent regional instability. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan created a private military industry that didn't exist at scale before 2001. Companies like Blackwater, now rebranded as Academy, built fortunes providing security services, logistics, training, and direct combat support. This industry doesn't disappear when official wars end. It migrates to new conflicts, new contracts, new revenue streams. Iran tensions generate contracts for base security, intelligence analysis, executive protection, and contingency planning throughout the Gulf region. These companies employ former special operations personnel at salaries far exceeding military pay. They have financial incentive to see conflicts continue and expand. Their lobbyists work alongside defense contractor lobbyists in Washington. Peace is their obsolescence. Agenda number 6. Reconstruction contracts worth hundreds of billions await whoever wins the post-war rebuilding competition. Iraq Reconstruction generated over $60 billion in contracts for American firms. Afghanistan generated tens of billions more. Much of this money was lost to waste, fraud, and corruption, but it was still paid. It still generated profits. Any significant military conflict with Iran would be followed by reconstruction. Ports, refineries, infrastructure, communication systems, all would require rebuilding. Contracts would flow to politically connected firms with existing relationships to relevant government agencies. Halliburton made billions from Iraq Reconstruction while its former CEO served as vice president. The pattern is established. War destroys. Reconstruction pays. The firms positioned for reconstruction contracts have financial interest in ensuring destruction occurs. We're halfway through, and you're starting to see how these agendas interconnect. Defense contractors profit from the war itself. Financial institutions profit from the volatility. The petrodollar system profits from the enforcement of dollar dominance. Gulf weapons sales profit from permanent threat. Private military profits from permanent deployment. Reconstruction firms profit from destruction. Different industries, same incentive, continued conflict. Subscribe now if you want to see the remaining agendas. They go even deeper. Agenda number 7. Sanctions enforcement has created an entire industry of compliance consulting, legal services, and financial monitoring that depends on continued sanctions regimes. When the United States imposes sanctions on Iran, every global bank, every multinational corporation, every trading company must ensure compliance or face massive penalties. This compliance requires lawyers, consultants, software systems, and monitoring services. An entire industry has emerged to help companies navigate sanctions. Billions of dollars flow to compliance professionals annually. Law firms have built specialized Iran sanctions practices. Consulting firms offer sanctions risk assessment. Software companies sell transaction monitoring systems. If sanctions were lifted, this industry would contract dramatically. The professionals who staff it have career incentives to recommend continued or expanded sanctions. They advise the same policymakers who determine sanctions policy. The feedback loop is complete. Agenda number 8. Insurance and reinsurance markets profit from war risk premiums that transform regional instability into global revenue streams. Every ship transiting the Persian Gulf carries insurance. During periods of tension, war risk premiums spike dramatically. A tanker that cost $50,000 to insure in peacetime might cost $500,000 or more during active conflict. These premiums flow to Lloyd's of London, major reinsurance companies, and specialized maritime insurers. The industry has sophisticated models for pricing conflict risk. Higher tension means higher premiums means higher revenue. Even ships that never face actual danger pay premiums based on perceived risk. The perception of danger, maintained through continuous media coverage of tensions, directly monetizes into insurance industry profits. Peace would collapse premiums. Fear sustains them. Agenda number 9. Currency speculation around sanctions and conflict generates returns for hedge funds positioned to profit from economic warfare. When sanctions tighten, the Iranian rial collapses. When diplomatic openings emerge, it recovers slightly. These movements are predictable to anyone tracking policy developments. Hedge funds specializing in frontier and distressed markets maintain positions designed to profit from currency volatility in sanctioned nations. The same funds often employ former Treasury Department officials who design sanctions policy. Information flows from government to private sector. Positions are established before public announcements. Profits are extracted from economic destruction. This isn't conspiracy. It's the documented career paths of sanctions officials who leave government for private finance. The revolving door operates here just as it operates in defense. Agenda number 10. Energy infrastructure investment requires predictable long-term returns that conflict with Iranian market access. Western oil majors have invested hundreds of billions in Gulf state production capacity. Saudi Aramco, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, Kuwait Petroleum Corporation. These investments assume continued market access and pricing power. Iran holds the world's fourth largest proven oil reserves and second largest natural gas reserves. If Iran were fully integrated into global energy markets, supply would increase, prices would face downward pressure, and competing investments would become less profitable. Keeping Iranian energy partially offline through sanctions and conflict protects existing investments. ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, Chevron all have financial interest in limited Iranian market participation. Their lobbyists, their board members, their political contributions all flow in directions that support continued Iran restrictions. The official justification is always security. The financial reality is market protection. Agenda number 11. Israeli defense industries profit from demonstrating weapons systems against Iranian targets in live combat conditions. Israeli defense exports exceed $12 billion annually. Iron Dome, David Sling, Trophy Active Protection Systems. These technologies are marketed globally with a unique selling proposition, combat proven against real threats. Every Iranian missile intercepted, every drone destroyed, every military engagement documented becomes marketing material for Israeli weapons manufacturers. Rafael, Elbit Systems, Israel Aerospace Industries. Their stock prices correlate with conflict intensity. Combat demonstrations generate sales that peacetime testing cannot match. The U.S.-Iran conflict provides continuous live-fire validation of Israeli defense technology. American aid to Israel flows back to American defense contractors who co-develop these systems. The financial ecosystem is circular and self-reinforcing. Agenda number 12. Central banks and sovereign wealth funds reposition portfolios based on conflict trajectories, generating transaction fees and management revenues regardless of outcome. When war looms, capital flight from risk assets generates trading activity. When diplomacy advances, rotation back into risk assets generates more trading activity. Either direction generates fees. Sovereign wealth funds managing trillions in assets pay management fees calculated as percentages of assets under management. Repositioning portfolios requires transactions that generate additional fees. The financial industry profits from movement, not direction. Volatility is revenue. Stability is stagnation. Central banks adjusting interest rates in response to oil price movements create cascading repositioning across global markets. Every adjustment generates fees for intermediaries. The U.S.-Iran conflict doesn't threaten the financial system. It stimulates it. Activity means profit. The longer the conflict continues, the longer the activity continues, the longer the profits flow. 12 agendas, 12 revenue streams. 12 reasons why powerful institutions need this conflict to continue. None of these agendas appear in news coverage. None are discussed in congressional hearings. None are mentioned in presidential speeches. The public debate occurs entirely within the narrative frame of security, values, and national interest. But the money flows regardless of the narrative. Defense contractors don't care whether you believe Iran is a nuclear threat. They care that you fund their contracts. Financial institutions don't care whether you support sanctions policy. They care that sanctions create volatility they can trade. Oil majors don't care about regional stability. They care about market share and pricing power. The war isn't about what they tell you it's about. The war is about money. It has always been about money. It will always be about money. This doesn't mean the public justifications are entirely false. Iran does have regional ambitions. Nuclear proliferation is a legitimate concern. Proxy conflicts do threaten stability. These realities exist, but they exist within a system where the most powerful actors profit from perpetuating rather than resolving these problems. Every conflict entrepreneur has incentive to ensure the threat persists. Solving the problem would end the revenue stream. Peace is not profitable. Understanding this doesn't make you cynical. It makes you literate. Financially literate about why the world works the way it does. Politically literate about whose interests shape policy. Media literate about why certain narratives dominate while others remain invisible. The next time you see a headline about Iran, ask yourself who benefits financially from the framing you're consuming. The next time a politician demands action, check their campaign contributions and their post office career trajectory. The next time an expert recommends military options, examine their institutional affiliations and consulting relationships. Follow the money. Always follow the money. It leads to the same places every time. Defense boardrooms, trading floors, lobbying firms, think tanks funded by industries that profit from the policies those think tanks recommend. The conflict you're watching isn't a conflict between nations. It's a business model, and you're not a citizen being protected. You're a customer being billed, trillions of your dollars, flowing to interests that need this war to continue. Now you know where the money goes. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. But you can never unsee it. You can never watch another war without recognizing the financial machinery beneath the flags and the rhetoric. Subscribe if you want to keep following the money. Share this with someone who still believes wars are about the reasons they're told. And understand that attention itself is a form of currency. You just spend it on understanding rather than consuming. That's the beginning of demanding something different.